Resourceful Designer, episode 148, Progress over Perfection.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He married his high school crush, Mark DeCote.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I am really happy that you've joined me and that you decided to spend a little bit of time to improve your design business. Now, in this episode, I'm going to talk about the importance of practicing and persevering. I'm also going to share a great resource I found for optimizing images before ending the episode with a question from Victor about reaching out to designers in your community. Now, I've had an eventful week this week. I lost my email for 3 days. And when I say I lost my email ceased to exist. In fact, my whole domain ceased to exist for 3 days. Now, that was a miscommunication between my hosting company and myself. I asked them to transfer something. I had a hosting package that was listed under my domain name, and I asked them if they could move that package to a different domain name, and they misunderstood me and moved everything from my business domain to another domain that I have that I don't use for anything. So when that happened, everything from my business domain switched to the other domain, meaning my emails that were mark at my business domain now became mark at that other domain. So on my website, which isn't really a website, it's still a under construction page, but all my emails that I have for my business stopped working because, well, for one, none of my clients knew that it had switched, so nobody knew what new domain to use it under, and it's not what I wanted. So anyways, it took me 3 days to get this fixed. In the end, what happened was the company was having trouble switching stuff back, and the whole purpose to move the hosting platform from my main domain was because I wanted to redirect the name servers of my domain somewhere else. I purchased some hosting on SiteGround back on an amazing Black Friday sale, and I decided I wanted to try moving stuff to SiteGround. So I wanted to redirect my domain to SiteGround, and I needed to move the hosting platform that was listed, or the hosting plan that was listed under that domain, to another one before I could redirect the DNS. So long story short, I ended up just saying, forget this. I redirected the DNS right away. It took about 24 hours for it to propagate. Then there was a few little bugs because of some stuff to get the emails working. So it wasn't till late Wednesday afternoon that I finally got my emails up and running again. So that was an interesting few days. Although I will tell you, without access to my emails, I found myself being very productive in other ways. I wasn't being interrupted. I didn't get that little bing or check. And whenever I'd look at my inbox, because I have my business emails and I have the podcast emails, and I have, about 20, 30 different email addresses, all of a sudden my inbox that would normally have, 40, 50, 60 emails in it only had 15 or 20. So it was real quick to go through my emails. And I spent a lot more time without interruption doing other things. So it was a blessing in disguise in that way. But still, what a pain. And because of the mix-up, it's not like I just didn't have access and emails were coming in. I had to contact all my clients that I was expecting stuff from and let them know that, hey, I didn't have access to my email. If you tried to send me something, please resend it. And a few of them did tell me that they had tried to send something and they got an error message back saying basically this email doesn't exist. The funny thing is none of them actually tried to call me up on it. But everything's up and running again. I did reach out to some clients. A few of them did send me stuff that they hadn't sent. If I lost anything else, it's out in the nether somewhere and I'll probably never see it. But it's just all part of running a business. So that was the interesting start to my week. But other than that, it finished off pretty normally with just a few jobs on the go. And it was just peace of mind that everything was back to normal, especially after the hectic holiday time where there was so much on the go. I wasn't doing a lot of work, but it was just nice to get back to the routine finally. So that's been my week this week. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, I've got a really interesting resource to share with you this week. And it's a website called Swoosh. I just love saying that name, Swoosh. Just sounds so, squishy. Anyways, the website is swoosh.app. And if you're not familiar with it, simply put, Swoosh is a website that allows you to drag and drop images that you want to optimize for web use. Now, the images appear in a full browser window with a slider, a vertical slider going over the middle of your image, with the left side of the image being the image you uploaded and the right side of the image being the optimized image. So you can drag this slider left or right to see different parts of the images, how the compression looks on the image. Now, there are options if you need to resize the image for something or to reduce the color palette if you're going to put up, say, a vector-based image or what was originally and now you want it to be a PNG or a JPEG. You can reduce the color palette in order to shrink its size. You can also adjust the type of compression that is applied as well as the quality of the compression. And you adjust this until you're satisfied with the image, and then you just hit the download button and you get a brand new, much smaller file size image. Now, I don't know what Swoosh does, what algorithms they're using, but I've been able to take a file that I optimized through Photoshop to the best that I thought Photoshop can do, drop it into Swoosh, and cut the file size in half again without degrading the image. I'm moving that slider left and right, and I don't see a difference between my uploaded image and the optimized image that I would download. And if I don't see a difference, then it's good, and the file size cut in half. So anyways, I discovered this about a month and a half ago. It was sometime towards the end of last year, and I've been fooling around with it, and I absolutely love it. I had some other sources that I was using for this sort of thing before, but now Swoosh has superseded them all. And not to mention, again, I just love that name, Swoosh. So if you are unfamiliar with it and you want to give this a try, visit Swoosh, that's SQUOOSH.app. So swoosh.app. And of course, if you forget that, there will be a link to this in the show notes for this episode at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 148. And now, progress over perfection. Now, the idea for this episode actually came from a recurring conversation theme in the Resourceful Designer Facebook group. Now, if you're not already part of the Facebook group, you really should join. You can get to it by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/group and answer the 3 questions I pose. There's so many people that try to join the group who don't answer the questions, and I don't even look to see who they are. I just decline them. You need to answer the questions if you want me to let you into the group. But you can answer whatever way you want. As long as you answer the questions, I'll let you in. There's been multiple conversations in the group about trying to improve one's design skills, be it working with typography, designing logos, or maybe learning WordPress, whatever it is. People were just talking about how they can improve their skills. Now, as you know, every skill you try to learn has a learning curve to it. Sometimes that curve is very small and you can learn something really quick. And sometimes that learning curve is very long. And in some cases, that learning curve is never ending, such as with design skills. It's not like learning how to use a software or learning how to do something else. Learning design skills is a never-ending process. Now, the title of this episode is Progress Over Perfection. And that's because perfection is an unattainable goal. It's impossible. And you know what? That's a good thing. Think about it. What if you designed the most amazing logo or the most amazing website in the world, and every single designer in the entire world acknowledged that it is the perfect logo or the perfect website? How would you follow that up? What would you do from that point forward? How can you improve on perfection? You can't. And that's a good thing. It's what keeps us creative. If you actually attained perfection, there would be no more motivation in order to carry you on, because everything after that point would be a step down from what you achieved. And that's why I chose the title for this episode to be Progress Over Perfection, because perfection is unattainable. Your goal should be to make progress instead, to constantly improve your design skills. And you do that by practicing. Now, it doesn't matter how long you do this, there will never be a time in your life where you don't need to improve your design skills. Even famed designers such as Michael Bierut from Pentagram or Kate Moross from Studio Moross continue to practice their skills. Carolyn Davidson designed the Nike swoosh when she was still a student at Portland State University. It's one of the most recognizable brands on the planet. I just say Nike swoosh and you can picture it in your head. But do you think Carolyn stopped learning or stopped trying to improve her skills after the success of that design? The answer is no. These designers, as well as every other designer in the world, continues to improve their skills by practicing their craft. And by practicing, I mean doing things over and over and over and over again with the intent of becoming better. It's a long road, believe me. I've been doing this for 30 years now, and the level that I want to be as a designer is still way, way out there, far beyond the horizon. And I know I will never reach that level that I want to be at. But it is a goal, and I keep practicing nonetheless to get as close to that as possible. Have you ever watched a video on YouTube by Aaron Draplin when he teaches logo design? He doesn't simply just pick up a pencil or his mouse and design some amazing logo. No, he tests out an idea, then another, scratching things off, trying different things, discarding some and expanding some other ideas. He keeps doing this 50, 100, 200 times until he finally begins to narrow down the idea and brings it till he has one concrete logo design. And even then, that final concrete logo design may get discarded for something completely different. That is called practicing. Some people refer to it as brainstorming or brain dumping or experimenting or whatever. It's still practicing. I remember when my daughter was a young teenager playing on a competitive soccer team. That's football for all of you that are outside of North America. Well, one day they had one of the women from Canada's women's national team come to help them out at practice. Now, this woman was one of the players from the 2012 Olympic bronze medal team. So she kind of knew a little bit about the game. Well, she told my daughter's team that if you want to become really good at soccer, you need to touch the ball over and over again. Not necessarily kick it or dribble it or bounce it on your knee, although she did say that those things will help as well, but just touching it with your feet over and over and over and over again will make you a better soccer player. Just when you're going about the house doing your chores, bring the ball along with your feet. When you're sitting watching TV, have the ball under your feet, roll it around on the carpet or floor as you're watching TV. As much as you can, play with the ball with your feet, not kicking it, not running with it, just playing with it, moving it around. And that's because every time you touch the ball reacts. You touch the ball with your foot here, the ball does this. You move your foot and touch it there, the ball does that. And every time the ball reacts to your touch, you're learning what to expect from the ball. And after you do this 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 times, you'll come to know exactly what to expect from the ball when your foot touches it. That's called practicing. It's not as glamorous as practicing penalty or corner kicks, or as fun as dribbling the ball through an obstacle course of orange cones. But it's practicing nonetheless. And the more you do it as a soccer player, the better you'll be on the pitch. Because that practice of just simply touching the ball, rolling the ball around with your feet, will help you understand how the ball reacts to your touch. And in order to stay at the top of your game, you need to continue practicing. Amazing football or soccer players such as Ronaldo or Messi or Canada's Christine Sinclair, they don't stop practicing just because they're at the top of their game. If anything, they need to practice even harder than before. Well, the same goes for design. Every single doodle you make, every sketch you make, every ill-conceived design concept you come up with, every logo, every poster, every banner, every website, everything, whether it's loved by the client or rejected by the client, should be considered as practice in your journey to make you a better designer. Every single design you make will help you better understand how certain elements interact with each other, how things align, how color combinations work or don't work, how fonts complement each other or don't complement each other, how things create flow in a design, or what things break up that flow. Every single design you make is practice to become a better designer. There's no fast solution to this. There are no books, there are no tutorials, online courses, or school programs that you can take that will magically make you a great designer. The only way to become a great designer is by learning and practicing the things that you learn over and over and over again. Now, this goes for new designers fresh out of school or those that are trying to learn on their own, as well as veteran designers like myself who have been in this industry for decades. We all need to keep practicing. In fact, the better you get at design, the more you'll understand the importance of practicing. I can guarantee you that the top designers from the top design firms around the world are constantly practicing their skill in order to improve. Nobody wants to stagnate and remain where they are. Remember, progress over perfection. So don't be discouraged if your design skills are not improving as fast as you would like them to, or that the critiques you receive from your designs are harsher than you expected. Ronaldo didn't become a superstar football player overnight. He spent years and years honing his talent, practicing every chance he got. And if you do the same, if you devote your time to practicing your design skills, there's no reason you can't become a superstar designer either. You cannot get worse by practicing. And that's why progress over perfection. Now, I would love to know how much time you consciously spend practicing your design skills. A lot of times we might not think of it as practice when we're actually designing something, but how much time do you actually spend consciously practicing things? Let me know by leaving a comment for this episode by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 148. And now, this week's question of the week. This week's question comes in from Victor. It says, you mentioned before how it's good to get to know designers in your community so you can hire or pass work on to them. Do you think it would be a good idea to introduce myself to studios in my community as a freelancer? My thought was that if I can do this with freelance designers in the community, why not studios? Well, thank you very much for the question, Victor. And simple answer is yes. Introduce yourself to as many places as you can. Now, the idea to get to know other designers is that you can hire them or pass on work, and maybe they'll do the same to you. And it's just great to know who is available. Sometimes there's a designer in the area that has a skill you don't, or sometimes you're too busy. It does happen that you get too busy and you can't take on a new client that contacts you. It's always good to have another designer that you can say, sorry, I can't take on that project right now, but why don't you try so-and-so? They may be able to help you. It makes the client feel better, like you are looking out for them. You're not just brushing them off. You're actually trying to help them out by giving them another name. The same thing goes for studios. If you're talking like studios or agencies, those places you should be introducing yourself, not for passing on work to them, but a lot of times these places may look for other designers to help them out. A lot of designers pick up extra work from agencies or studios around them or all over the place. Whenever these studios either are in need of a special talent that you may have, or they may just be overwhelmed with what they have in-house. Agencies tend to get a lot more work than freelance designers. Just it's the nature of an agency. A lot of people come to them, and sometimes big companies will have multiple projects. And sometimes an agency or a studio will get overwhelmed and they'll need help. It might be on a temporary basis. So definitely reach out to them. Let them know. Don't just send them a hi. I would actually, if they're local, I would actually go drop in, introduce yourself, shake hands with people, let them know you're available, what you're doing, what you skills you have to offer to them, and let them put a face to you. They will be much more inclined to call you up, contact you, pass on work to you if they can visually picture you in their head. So yes, by all means, reach out to anybody you can in the industry. The more people that know you, the better. And you never know when an agency might get contacted by a client, a small client, and they'll say, well, sorry, we're a little bit too large an agency to handle that small project, but maybe somebody like Victor can help you out. And they might pass on your information. So thank you very much for that question, Victor, and good luck contacting the studios and agencies in your area and the other designers. It's great to know them. I don't view any of the designers around me as competition. We all know each other. We all joke around. We talk to each other, and we all respect each other. And when you have a working environment like that, even though we don't work together, we're all in the same community, it benefits everybody. So thank you very much for that. Now, if you have a question you'd like me to answer in a future episode of the podcast, please submit it at resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback. Now, I received a couple of iTunes reviews over the holiday, and I'd like to read one right now. This one came in from Nico D from the USA. It says, "Great podcast. I've been listening to the Resourceful Designer podcast for 5 months now. I must say that it's been a blessing to me and my graphic design business. Prior to listening to the podcast, I was working a job that was good, but wasn't fulfilling. Mark gave me the confidence to resign my job and switch to a full-time home-based designer." Well, thank you very much for that great review, Nico, and congratulations. I know you're going to love it if you put the dedication in, and as this episode was all about, if you keep making progress and don't aim for perfection, you keep practicing, maybe not necessarily your design skills, although you should be practicing your design skills, but if you keep practicing that whole business mentality, there should be great success in your future. So thank you very much for that lovely review. I'm up to 91 reviews now, only 9 short of reaching 100. I can't wait to get the 100th review and see what it is. But I'm a patient person and I'll wait. Now, if you have not left a review for the podcasts, you can do so by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/iTunes, which will redirect you to Apple Podcasts. I know I said iTunes, but that's the link. It'll redirect you to my podcast in Apple Podcasts, where you can click on the Leave Review tab. So that's it for this episode. I do want to remind you that if you know any other designers, if you have friends that are designers or colleagues or anybody that you think may enjoy the show, please let them know that they can subscribe and listen anywhere podcasts can be found, including on Spotify. Or if they're not sure about podcasts, just tell them to look for the Resourceful Designer app, either in Apple's iOS App Store or the Google Play Store for Android. And they could download the app and listen to the episodes directly there. So thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with me as we discuss trying to improve our graphic design business, and in this case, our design skills. Time for me to end the podcast and get back to practicing. I am Mark Dacote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business, and as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.